So to continue our coverage over the Dawn of X, we actually pick up with Excalibur number 6, and we actually pick up with the rebirth of Apocalypse. Because remember, at the end of our last video, Apocalypse was killed by Rogue, because Rogue was pissed off with Apocalypse with everything he was doing behind the scenes. And so with that being said, Rogue had killed Apocalypse, and so now we're seeing Apocalypse being brought back to life thanks to the Five. Remember, the Five are 5 mutants who have the ability to bring someone back to life. But as soon as they bring Apocalypse back to life, that is the moment he is confronted by Jamie Braddock, the brother to Betty Braddock and Brian Braddock, the original Captain Britain and the current Captain Britain. But the big question is though now, what is Apocalypse planning with Jamie Braddock? Now we do jump back over to Otherworld, and remember, right now Otherworld is being ruled by Morgan Le Fay, somebody that the Excalibur team is trying to bring down, but to also free the brother of Betty Braddock and Jamie Braddock, Brian Braddock, who was the original Captain Britain. But with all that being said, you do have the Excalibur team right now in Otherworld getting ready to fight against Morgan Le Fay. Now remember, the Excalibur team is a very capable team, but at the same time, when it comes to Morgan Le Fay, she has a whole army behind her. And right now, she also hates the mutant race a whole lot, especially Apocalypse, because she knows that it was Apocalypse plotting to do something here in Otherworld and at the same time plotting to do something else, and we have no idea what it is at all at the moment. Now, while you have the forces of Morgan Le Fay fighting against the forces of Excalibur, that is the moment you have Apocalypse reappear. Now, with Apocalypse reappearing, this is very huge because to Excalibur, they saw him die at the very end of our last video. And so right now they're confused on how in the world this man is alive once again so quickly. Yes, they do know about the Five, but usually it takes some time for the Five to bring someone back to life. And you have Apocalypse say, because he's one of the members of the Quiet Council, he was moved up the list very quickly to be brought back to life. And so that is how he's here right next to the Excalibur team. Now, this is the moment you have Apocalypse actually go over to Morgan Le Fay to work out some kind of deal. And when I say a deal, I mean a duel. A duel between her best warrior and his best warrior, which right now is Betty Braddock, who is the current Captain Britain, and Brian Braddock, who was the original Captain Britain before his sister. And they're going to have these two characters fight against each other. If Betty wins, Apocalypse wins. If Brian wins, well then Morgan Le Fay wins. And that right there is very important. Now, this duel does go on for a couple pages, where you actually have Betty Braddock fighting against her brother Brian Braddock. And while the two characters are fighting against each other, it's reminding us who is a better swordsman, who is a better fighter. And at first, it does kind of seem like Brian Braddock is the better swordsman, the better fighter. But at the same time, let's not forget, Betty Braddock used to be in the body of Psylocke, who's right now the leader of the Fallen Angels team. And while she was in that body, she learned so much more about sword fighting. And so with that being said, Betty Braddock is also a great sword fighter. But either way, this duel does end with Betty Braddock being able to stab her own twin brother Brian Braddock. Now, with him being stabbed, that is the moment you have Brian Braddock find out that his brother Jamie Braddock is alive. Now, this is huge because Jamie Braddock is the strongest sibling because he's able to warp reality on a very high level. And he was a bad guy for a long time in Marvel Comics. But of course, Brian Braddock had no idea that COPPA had brought Jamie back to life. But Betty did know. And Betty never told Brian. And so with Betty stabbing Brian and it seems like he's going to die, Brian Braddock finds out that his evil brother Jamie is alive again, which is very huge to say. But let's not forget about the duel though, because with Betty Braddock winning the duel, that means Apocalypse wins, which means that he's able to appoint someone to be the king or queen of Otherworld. And of course, the person he selected is no other than Jamie Braddock, somebody who's very powerful but evil at the same time, has been put in a very powerful position. On top of that, you then have Jamie Braddock exile Morgan Le Fay because now he is the ruler of this kingdom. At the same time, he also brings Brian Braddock back to life. But of course, you have Brian Braddock get very upset with the idea that Betty Braddock did not tell him that their evil brother Jamie was brought back to life. But either way though, now Jamie Braddock is the king of Otherworld, which is very huge to say for the moment. And the big question is now, what is Apocalypse and Jamie are planning to do together? What is their big goal? Now, of course, with everything beginning to wind down, we do pick up with Rogue and Gambit. Now, this is very important because remember, all of Volume 1 of Excalibur, Rogue has been in some kind of stasis coma thanks to Apocalypse, but now she is free. And so this is the first time in a long time that Gambit is able to spend some time with his wife. But on top of that, this is the moment you actually have Rogue tell Gambit that she does not want a child. Now that right there is very huge because it's Rogue saying like, listen, there's a bunch of children on this island already. On top of that, there's other people who are just like me who are able to have kids. Let them have kids. Right now, it should just be you and me, Gambit, and that is it. And honestly, Gambit is okay with that idea. Now, there is a few more things we need to talk about when it comes to Betty Braddock and Brian Braddock. And the reason why I say that is because when you have Betty Braddock check up on her twin brother, Brian Braddock, she does see that he is right now crying. Now, the reason why he is crying is because he was visited by Merlin and Roma. Now, these two characters are very important because usually they offer two kind of things: the amulet of the right and the sword of might. Now, usually, if you are going to become the next Captain Britain, you're going to choose the amulet. But of course, Brian Braddock is full of rage that apparently he chose the sword of might. And that right there is very huge because with him picking up the sword of might, that means he cannot be Captain Britain. But the reason why he picked up the sword of might is because he believes that his soul, his mind, his body is full of anger. All thanks to Morgan Le Fay having control over him for so long. But with all that being said, basically right now he has chosen the sword of might. And so he now has a different set of powers. Now the big question is though now, is he technically a Captain Britain or is he not? Or is Betty Braddock still Captain Britain? Either way, you're going to have two characters holding different weapons, the sword of might and the amulet of the right. But either way, these two characters are going to protect Britain and Otherworld together. But to go ahead and wrap up this video, we actually do jump back over to Otherworld. And remember, in Otherworld right now, Jamie Braddock, the brother to Betty Braddock and also Brian Braddock, is the ruler of Otherworld. And that is huge right there because for some strange reason, Apocalypse wanted Jamie Braddock to be the ruler of Otherworld. We have no idea why, but when Jamie Braddock goes to see Apocalypse in the dungeon or basement level of their new castle in Otherworld, Apocalypse is working on something big. We have no idea what it is yet, but we are going to learn in future videos. But with all that being said, I do hope you enjoyed today's comic book video. And if you did, please leave me a like down below and subscribe. Also, if you have any suggestions on books I should read, well, please let me know in the comments below because you never know, your suggestion could be a future video down the road. But I do hope you enjoyed today's comic book video. Later, guys.